Oh, assalamu alaikum, folks. Right. Let me check. I take it we is live. Huh? I'm just going to see if the audio's coming through. Right. Whilst at the same time bringing up the comments. Right. Right. Let's see if those of you tuning in, you can. I'll just do a quick confirmation that the sound is fine. Right. Let me just see this. Bismillah. All right. I see this here. Now just pop out the chat. There you go. All done. Right. I just put that back. Right. All right. So that's all done. Sound is good. All right. Bismillah. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. الصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم. All right, people. Wow. You know, yeah, I haven't been live with a meeting with Malm for a couple of weeks now, and I wasn't sure about today, and that's maybe one of the signs that you should do something. Yeah, I just wanted to. I thought, I'm gonna come on today and really just bounce maybe a few thoughts. Yeah, some interactions, and that's it. Maybe call it a night tonight. I've today's been one of those days, man, that with my mum's health, yeah, it's deteriorating, and it's tough, these things. Yeah, I think. And what's strange is that sometimes in the throes of it all, it's not that you're, I don't know if the word managing is right, but you're managing reasonably fine given the circumstances, and yeah, but then suddenly, maybe when you're not there, I don't know, it just hits a different chord. And yeah, it is what it is. And it just reminds us of, the human condition, which ultimately is frailty. That's what it is. It's not, I think everything, ultimately our condition is one of frailty. Yeah. And it just reminds us of that, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Say, Carl Jung had said that that the world hangs by a thin thread, which is the psyche of man. And I guess by that, it's all these constructs, all these structures, all these narrative stories, our perception, our consciousness, that this whole thing is really in the psyche. It is the, it's the interaction, the connecting of the soul to this world, this this game, I guess, in many ways, of a world. Yeah, اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو. That it's a sport, it's an entertainment, it's a distraction, albeit a pleasant one at times. But yeah, so yeah, I thought, there's that Jaun Elia has that poem that कल पर ही रखो वफा की बातें, आज मैं बहुत बुझा हुआ हूं. That he says that, let's put all this talk of, I guess, of bonds and covenants and loyalty and all of these, let's put all of this off till tomorrow. Today, the soul is dampened, I guess. It's it's been kind of put out a bit. Aaj mein bahut bujha hua. Yeah. But I guess, I was thinking about this, and I thought, in all of this, in is a kind of artistic beauty almost from a distance. You see, there's that it, just as the strokes of the artist's brush, they, there can be an aggression to them. There can be a a strange mismatch when zoomed in, a layering, things on top of things, and a chaos, even a mess, even zoomed in at a particular frustration, passion, color, contrast, and also maybe things that don't appear to coordinate so well, color coordinate so well. But as you zoom out, the landscape, the portrait, the mural, the painting, it is but a piece of art, isn't it? As you zoom out, you see that. And I was thinking that, I guess that's life as well, isn't it? In a way, it's it's a metaphor for life, that that all of these things make up what we can call life with a capital L. Shayad isi ka naam hai zindagi. That's, yeah. So I thought, yeah, let's go live and see who is awake at this godly hour. Yeah, it's interesting. A moment, let's take a moment briefly. There's a تعليقات in Bukhari where they would have a phrase, اجلس بنا نؤمن ساعة, that take a seat, that sit for a moment briefly, let's believe. That it's strange, اجلس بنا نؤمن ساعة. that for a moment, let's believe. It's wow. Because I guess ultimately it is but a series of moments when we think about it. Some, some may be bereft of faith. Some maybe void of emotion, whilst others, these moments we go through in life, full of joy, or full of, even not even if it's not joy, but full of life, the zest, that which makes life, the ingredient, the missing ingredient, the wow. So yeah, let's see who's tuned in with us tonight. Let's see. I thought right. Scorpio, ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban. Osman Kul Muhammad, मोहब्बत रही 4 दिन जिंदगी में, रहा 4 दिन का असर जिंदगी पर. That reminds me of one of Firaq Gorakhpuri, where he says, माना कि 4 दिन की है जिंदगी, पर 4 दिन भी बहुत हैं यारो. He says that we recognize that there's this thing you see in Urdu that an idiom that life is of 4 days. It's idiomatic to express the fleeting moments of life, I guess. And he says that I accept that life simply comprises of 4 days. But he says, my friends, if we think about it, 4 days too is an abundant amount. Yeah, so that's right. Who else do we have? We've got Anas, Farid, wa alaikum assalam, Rohim, ahlan wa sahlan, Munir, Shamroz, shukran. Allah bless you. Mahmouda Khan, shukran from Zimbabwe. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban. Right. Maryam, all right. What a fascinating Salam Mufti. Do you ever wonder if you had identical quintuplets living in other continents? How different of a worldview would your hypothetical bros have? Yeah, that would be fascinating. I would be intrigued. These kind of things really intrigue me. Imagine bumping into now, at this age, seeing these other yous, so to speak, because they are ultimately also you. So it's like saying, how have they got on with life? And I think it would be it would just be fantastically amusing, unless they're in some serious trouble. And right, but wow, that would be interesting. I've often pondered even things like, you have these incidents that people have where they stumble upon siblings at a later time in life. They realize that that their their father has that there's more chapters to his story than they knew. He's been a little nutty, but it is the thought of that let's say you at an older age Uh, Shukran, Allah bless you. Likewise. Um, that the thought of stumbling upon siblings, and I always find this thought very fascinating, and something if were it to happen to me, I would actually be quite intrigued positively about the whole experience. I would, right, I would want to know more and be so intrigued about their stories. And yeah, it's interesting. I put that. I think I don't know if many people would be like that. Okay, so what's interesting is I think I may have mentioned this before actually. What I found when I asked this question to people just over time randomly, you know, when you're in a discussion and it comes up, I found often, I don't know if this is consistent or maybe it was just my interaction, but I found often if it were women, they weren't happy with the thought of discovering other siblings. I think it weighed down on the people I asked. I think it weighed down heavily the concept of that their father then had these children and they never, you know, that he in that sense had not been monogamous or not been and the men I mean the people who I asked, the men, I think that wasn't really a factor for them. It didn't factor into they're just like, ah, in that. And I found, so I wonder if that's consistent. I wonder how other people viewing this, listening to it, I wonder how they feel as a man or as a woman. I wonder if some men would be offended or some women would be very delighted. Yeah, that's an interesting thought experiment. Yeah, right. What is going on? So, purple colored. This. Oh. Marksy, علامة لونزتا. That's enough to bring a smile to all of our faces. I couldn't agree more. One long lost brother would be incredible, but four. That reminds me. Remember there was uh, a series on Netflix where what's it called, Our Father or something, Our Father, where it's with this guy in America. He was a doctor, a fertility doctor, working on uh, IVF kind of treatment, so fertilization, but clinical, as in for people who were struggling with fertility. Not all of them were infertile, some were, and some were just struggling for fertilization, and so they would do it in surgery, artificially. And what he was doing was, even where it was meant to be donated sperm, or where it was the husband's sperm, but he had to, take it in and fertilize it in the lab, he was just insert his own DNA, just discard that sample and in with his own. And so so they start to stumble upon each other several decades later. All these DNA tests start popping up that, oh, you've got a brother, yeah, you've got a sister. And they had about, I think, 300, or did it go more? Did it go 500? Bloody hell. And they're so annoyed. I mean, I get that though. I get that. That's because there's that deception in that. But what was what was hilarious? There's one guy in it. So I think the main leads in the documentary are his daughters, these female leads. But there's a few men in between and this one man, and they're all for the most part, they're all very annoyed with this doctor. But there's this one guy, the son, who's really annoyed with him. He's like, but he's like a carbon copy of him. Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's it. Dr. Donald Klein. Was that his name? Yeah. Yeah, that was hilarious. Now he had more than 94. Somebody said 94. Because towards the end of the documentary, they're showing the count keeps going up. Towards the end of the documentary, I think 300 they had found or something. But yeah, that would be yeah. So what else is preoccupying your precious thoughts, people? Four brothers, a bit like having four wives. Good old polygamy. There was something I was listening to by Alan Watts, where he's sharing an incident that when he had met Carl Jung. So I think he met him in the last year of his life, of Carl Jung's life. I think that was 58 or something. But so he meets him, and Alan Watts says that they're strolling. They're spending time together, and they're strolling by this lake, and it's got these swans in it. So he says, I asked, Dr. Jung, that is it true that swans are monogamous? And he said that, Carl Jung said, yes, they are. And he said that there's something else incredibly fascinating about them. And that is that when they meet to embark upon the deed, on the intimacy, the intimacy. So the swans, when they meet for intercourse, he said what they do is they just fight. And they keep fighting each other until, in the hope that they eventually realize that, wait a minute, what are we doing? We were supposed to be doing something else. We were supposed to be make love, not war. And then if they realize that, then they get locked in to this path of monogamy. So that's a fascinating anecdote from Jung. And he said that phenomenon allegedly helped him with his own patients. But Allahu A'lam, but hilarious and interesting. So you reminded me of that. I thought, let's share it. Right. Some super chats. Nora, love you too. Allah bless you and keep you always smiling. That's always our awesome, incredible Nora from Florida. Shukran. Oh, I've got another super chat somewhere. Right. Okay. Sam Hidi. Shukran. Much love for the super chat. Salam Mufti Sahib. My aunt had just passed away 2 days back. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. May Allah make things easy for you. May make things easy for her family and bless her afterlife. Ameen. Which I'm more than certain He already has. Are we allowed to recite Quran on her behalf? Sometimes there's a feeling of helplessness. Yes, of course. You can recite Quran. You can make dua. You can do something. Maybe give an act of charity on her behalf. Right. This is a fascinating mas'ala. Because in my life, right, let me share with you. In my life, I came repeatedly, I would say, across this mas'ala in gradation, in plateaus, in leaps, and found myself in front of it anew each time. I began, I guess, decades ago now, due to my upbringing, generally this mas'ala is called uh, either isalu thawab, that you are commonly, especially in Urdu, isalu thawab, or hibatu thawab, um, or that you gift, you donate reward to people, or sometimes referred to in the fiqh books, especially some of the Maliki textbooks, as an-niyaba fil ibadah. Okay, so it has these kind of names, which is deputyship in worship. Vahaha, I got to make it rhyme in English as well. I guess some part of me is still attuned. I like it. Me gusta, me gusta. So, right, so this mas'ala, growing up, this was very normal. Isalu thawab, you donate reward. So, okay, I thought that was a given in Islam. Then years went by, and I realized, oh, well, actually, this is sorry, I was told that actually the Maliki madhab is quite against this. And I think that just created some turbulence, and I'd not really paid attention so much. And then time goes by. So I came initially from this thing where we would do this. It was normal. It was so commonplace within Islam. Then it came to this point that years later, I found myself being, facing some arrows of doubt. And then with time having passed, I stumbled upon arguments and discussions. I stumbled upon the fatwa of Imam Malik, and saying that, look, no, why would somebody worship on behalf of somebody else? And the fatwa of Imam al-Shafi'i, who cites the verse of the Quran, وَلَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى, that insan only attains that what he or she worked for or strived towards. أَلَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. So Imam al-Shafi'i uses that as evidence to say, how can you donate a reward in Islam? And the Maliki fatwa, Imam Malik's fatwas were on this. The early Malikiya were very kind of harshly on this. And I know some of the later Malikiya were slightly different. They were saying, no, it's permissible. But for the early several centuries, you'll find the early Malikiya having this harsh kind of stance of that's bid'ah, doesn't make any sense. And then I found myself on that realization. And I found it very, yeah, of course, it now makes sense, as it were, the penny had dropped. And I felt, of course, this is just ignorance. This is jahala. This is bid'ah. Kullu bid'atin dalala. The days of enthusiasm. When the religious fervor has had its Red Bull, as it were. And yeah, so I would be like, that's bid'ah. We don't believe in that. I was very clinical about this. And many years ago, I made videos about this as well. And this went on for years. I had this very clinical approach, which to me made clear sense that, look, well, tough stuff. We're all in this dunya. We all have a ajalum musamma, as the Quran says, a deadline, a set. And then we pass. And yes, there is the hadith that, إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ انْقَطَعَ عَمْلُهُ, that if the child of Adam, if a human passes, his or her reward cease, إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاث, except from 3, صَدَقَةٌ جَارِيَةٌ, or, it mentions that, or a knowledge that he had taught, or وَلَدٌ صَالِحٌ يَدْعُو لَهُ. or a pious child that continues to make dua. And as the Malikiya, great Malikiya before me from the early Salaf and those who came after, the early part of the, the mutaqaddimin of the madhab, in their stance and like the others, I thought to myself, well, sure, this part makes sense because all of these actions, the deceased initiated them. So it's like an investment. So if you place the initial, if you have an investment, then the ROI will continue, the return on investment. And even if you're no longer there, it's still generating. So if you've done a sadaqah jariyah, like let's say you built a well, people continue to drink from that well. If you'd set up a hospital or set up, you did something that continues, it has perpetuity, then so would the reward. Or if you taught knowledge, then so long as that knowledge continues in the world and it inspires and enlightens and it motivates and it educates, then that is your investment. So you continue, and the child fundamentally is your bringing into this world. You brought that child into the world and you gave them a good tarbiyah, so it all makes sense. ROI, return on ibadah. I like that, Lonzetta. You naughty, naughty. That is quite epic, actually. Return on ibadah. So these are all ROIs of that nature. But I thought, well, look, it's very clear. If a person dies, forget about cultural practices and all these, and this other opinion that's the Hanafi and the Shafi'iyya hold, and some Hanbalis, but it's a bid'ah, and there's no such thing as a good bid'ah, therefore throw it out the window. And I was like that for years, And it's interesting. It's not information in a cold, critical sense that gives us growth. It's a realization of that knowledge or of that, which often, maybe not exclusively, but often involves a dynamism, an interaction with people. Seriously. And what happened is, so a good few years ago, a very good friend of mine, who I call Sheikh al-Qawm, Allah bless him, his friend had passed away. I can't remember how old he must have been. So he had this friend, I think maybe his friend was in his late 40s or something like this. But he had, or maybe he was about 50 or early 50, but he'd passed away like a sudden heart attack and just died. And this was a bit of a shock to my friend. And so obviously it would be, and especially since he knew him and they went years ago, they were in college together and all these things. And I was speaking to him and he said to me, oh, I'm going to, go sit at the sitting after the janazah. They have a sitting for a few days. He said, because I said to him, oh, what are you up to? He said, I'm going to go there. He said, he's passed away. And he said, you know what? I'm going to sit and read some Surah Yasin for him. And, without saying much more, in that moment, I had a realization. Like the whole thing, it's like the frame, the whole thing got adjusted in that moment. I understood it. That you see, these things, they were created. And in it is the wisdom of Allah so as to benefit us, to help us. And I guess us is ultimately all of us, even those who have passed away. We are ultimately one structure. bunyanun wahid, as the Prophet said, we are one structure interlocked like these fingers. That's how, like bricks in a wall. The helplessness that we face with the passing of an individual, it is in these things that there is divine wisdom, that we recite something for them, we say a prayer for them, we give an act of charity on their behalf. That in it Allah has placed a relief for us. And by extension, those who have passed them too, since they too are us. So, wallahi, in that moment, it's like the whole equation was restructured for me. And I had this depth of what felt like a fresh understanding all of a sudden, that I get it. It now finally makes sense to me. So yeah, I would definitely, I think, we go through life, we live, we learn. And it's interesting. I think of these journeys, even with these opinions, and where you find yourself in years. क्या बात है, huh? क्या बात है. So, yeah, let's see what else is going on. Omar Hamid Khan, when you become mature and start to understand, you understand why Awliya Allah did things the way they did. Isalu Thawab was part of it. Yeah, you do. You do. Absolutely. Right. So, what is going on? Right. So, Mufti, what do you think about the book of Imam Damiri? Which book are we talking about? Right. So, Lee Mandal, I enjoy listening to you. Allah bless you. Allah bless you. Shukran, Lee. Right. Yeah. So, what is going on, people? Shall I share the link? Does anybody want to jump on? And why not? Why not? Let me see. Um, all right. There's the link, people. So, what else is going on? Allah, Allah. Mufti Abu Layth, the philosopher, MMA, doing it, doing it. Right. What are your thoughts on Dr. Javad T, Hashmi, and Shaadi Mubarak debate? I still haven't watched that. I saw it come up, so the thumbnail came up on my YouTube, and I thought, yeah, I've got to watch this. It was a bit lengthy, and I didn't watch. I started on his other one with Dr. Little about the age of Aisha. I got about halfway through. Very interesting, of naturally things that we've covered before, but it's just always refreshing to hear these things and see them. So yeah, that's. But I will try to watch that and see what I think about it, inshallah. So, mi gente, ¿qué está pasando? Qasim asks, no, that's somebody else. Oh, he was, all right. Salam, I'd like to ask if you've read the Guru Granth Sahib, and if so, what are your thoughts? I've not read the Guru Granth Sahib, although I believe there's certain extracts that are from the, I believe, the Granthi, that are taught within Sikhism, that I have read and used when I used to teach um, RE, religious education, many years ago. So yeah, I know that it's very fascinating in the sense that the name Allah appears several times in the Guru Granth Sahib, and several statements from many Muslim saints. I believe Baba Farid and other people are in there as well. So yeah, it seems very there was an interesting actually it was just the other day we ended up having this discussion um on Sikhism and I guess Guru Nanak and the whole thing. It was an interesting discussion. One I'm sure I've had many times on my show, just about how he was certainly influenced by Islam, although he kept a, I guess he kept an um, a representation more akin to the mystics. So, and his answers were at times vague, but it was fascinating that as he passes away, his body is missing because allegedly the Muslims claimed he was Muslim and they wanted to bury him, and the Hindus claimed, he was of this, so they wished to cremate him. So it was that's fascinating. And you have that in our tradition. We have that, for example, with the body of Sayyidina Ali, radiallahu an, that his body arguably disappeared. When I say disappeared, I'm sure there's some explanation, but we are not aware of it. And is that because, as people would say, that it would have just become maybe a fitna of some sort? And yeah, but there is no shrine to, I mean, there are alleged shrines to Sayyidina Ali, and I think even Mashhad in Afghanistan makes a claim to something of that nature, I believe, of Sayyidina Ali. But really, there's no no shrine or tomb or grave known for Sayyidina Ali, radiallahu anh. So that's intriguing, yeah. Right. hmm Right. How did you convert? How did I convert? Ahmed Shahzad. How did you convert to Maliki from Allah? What's the poem? أنا مالكي ما حييت وإن أمت فوصيتي للناس أن يتملكوا. No, I've pinched that from the Hanbali poem actually. Where he said, so the poem that I am a Maliki. He actually it's an Hanbali. I just pinched it from this Hanbali scholar of the past, where he says, "I'm a Hanbali as long as I live, and were I to die, then my final will or testimony will be to people will be that they should adopt the Hanbali method." But I was saying it with the Malikis. Yeah, joking aside, the school of Medina, as it is known, it is seriously one of the true gems of this legacy of Islam, because it is, I guess, it's like you get to wear a filter, a lens through which you see. It is a window to the outside world, which is then the glory of this faith. And the lens or this filter of the Maliki madhab, it really is a special one. You can't knock it. It's one built on naturalness. One of the things that really, I'll come back to that. But so it's built on naturalness. It's built on a firm foundation within the Deen, the Sunnah, the living tradition of Medina. It doesn't get any. It does not get any more pristine than that. It doesn't get more forcibly strong in strength than that. The living tradition of Medina. I mean, beat that if you may. Nothing comes close. And then this whole thing is enveloped in maslahah, in welfare. That is a beauty, honestly. You just cannot, you cannot even meet it, let alone raise it. And much kudos and love to the other schools, but you can't. And then the personality of Imam Malik is just, I guess for me, it's just an icing to this amazing delight. It's and once again, much love and kudos to the other madhabs and the imams, and arguably the personality of Imam Abu Hanifa has always fascinated me as well. The difference only being that the Hanafi madhab, in my perception of things, it found itself quite farther afield from the Imam, to the extent that one may even argue, and this is not to be dismissive of the Hanafi madhab, but just as a perception, as an observation, that one may argue that it is completely unrecognizable from the foundations of which it began. It's so unrecognizable. And that's not to say that hasn't happened in the other schools. It has as well. And including the Maliki madhab, it has happened in the Maliki madhab too. But in the other madhabs, the resistance remained. That there was always a resistance. Somos la resistencia. And we are part of that resistance. But to institutionalization. So in the Maliki madhab, it remained. There was this, there were many who stood strong against the influence of institutionalization. And even, if they be small in number, but their legacy and willpower was bright enough to shine a light. So I would, so this is why the School of Medina, and one of the first things that it really struck out to me when I became Maliki, and this is going back something like over 25 years ago now. अब बोलता हूं तो अजीब लगता है. It's strange now that we say things like that 25 years ago. You could live an entire lifetime in that, which arguably we have done. We have lived an entire lifetime in that. But it's one of the things that really stood out to me was the naturalness. At first, I was unsettled by it because I came from structuralism. And it's as if the School of Medina is pre-structuralist. So it doesn't seem to recognize structuralism in that sense. Like, I was only 18. I was learning the School of Medina, and I was asking, okay, so this is how we hold our hand in the Hanafi madhab, 3 fingers on top and 1 thumb round, and the pinkies wrapped round that way, and this must be under the navel, and when you do takbir in Salah, you touch the earlobes and the hands face out, and the feet must be just about a handspan apart from one another, and then you neatly place this beneath your hands beneath the navel, and everything was so precise and structured. And I'm sure that has a wonderful place for many people. But the School of Medina was so natural. It was like, where are you getting these structures from? It was saying, so you'd ask, how do I stand? however it comes naturally to you. How do I hold my hands in Salah? However it comes naturally. How do I, and you're thinking, what? Oh, I'm in sujood, and you praise the Lord in sujood and your gratitude, and oh, why don't you make a dua? Sure, you come from a tradition, especially some schools like the Hanafi school, they'll say all du'as must be Quranic du'as or things like this in sujood, or strict school of Medina was like, no, this is dua. You ask for whatever you want. You want to ask for a drink, you want to ask for a phone, you want to ask for to pass in an exam tomorrow, you want to ask for a promotion at work, you want to ask for it. But how do I say it in your language? Does Allah not understand languages? I'm thinking, what the hell what's going on? I'm allowed to make dua in my language in Salah. It's like, of course you are. Why wouldn't you be? But what? See. So at first, these things were unsettling for me because they were so at odds with what I was used to. It was a pre-structural world. And I was uneasy at the thought of these things. But then as I began to soften to this natural state, this kind of just being in a state of flow with things, it really, it gelled so well with my personality and me and my growth in faith. And then the thing about maslahah, that the deen always looks out for welfare. And should you at any point find yourself in a kind of quagmire situation where you are in a conundrum or in a just in a difficult spot, the deen is always there to make life easy for you, to facilitate your journey through this world. The deen is never meant to be an impediment to your life. This notion just was so, it gripped me like a storm. And I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with this understanding that Islam is here to create ease in your life. And it is a beautiful deen. And the Prophet said, ad-deenu yusar, that the deen is one of ease. He said, ad-deen, he said it 3 times, ad-deenu yusar, ad-deenu yusar, ad-deenu yusar. And in another riwayah, I believe in the Musnad of Ahmad, the Prophet is asked, tell us the best of this deen. What is what is the best part of this deen? Throw it at us. What's the best part to you, O Prophet of God? And the Prophet said, Aysaruhu, that in which there is the most ease is the best. Allah. See, these things I found, wow. And the hadith you have in Bukhari that Aisha is saying, radiallahu anha, the Prophet never found himself at a crossroad, metaphorical crossroad, between a choice, between 2 things, except he always chose illa ikhtara aysarahuma, except he always chose the path of ease, parsimonious, the one that has least resistance. This understanding of the faith really infused my soul. So yeah, these were some of the things that upon which I began that journey over 2 decades ago on this school of Medina. And it has till date been one of the most wonderful aspects of my, I won't even say learning, of my of my lived experience of this deen. Yeah. So shukran for that. Let's take a look at some questions. We've got a super chat somewhere. What's this? Salam ya Mufti wa alayka salam Rahim. Doing it. Is it possible for the masses to be taught to have a more nuanced or less black and white thinking, or believing away from that life is a zero-sum game? Would schools want this? By schools, you mean the schools of thought, I take it. You mean the madhabs, I take it. Ah, look at that right there. And as I say that, Lonzetta, that we didn't choose the school of Medina. The school of Medina chose us. Allah. Yeah, so yes, of course, I think that would be awesome to guide people to help navigate people towards an understanding of the deen that is more nuanced. It is less binary. It is less rigid, and to almost a pre-structural understanding of the deen. That naturally this will pose problems as well, challenges, because people have an ontology of the faith, that they have a preconceived notion that Islam must be black and white. Now, to eradicate that notion for some people, it jeopardizes their faith, because they have a metonymic relationship with God. So, as opposed to a metaphoric relationship with God. Now, a metonymic relationship with God would be by association of his laws, his rulings, his worship, his things, as opposed to him, and maybe him by extension, but through these things. So why? And to many of these people, they only do these things because, and this, we're zeroing in on one of the cruxes of this issue. This is that there are several people who only do certain things in Islam because they feel that that thing is obligatory, the absence of which would result in them being punished in the afterlife. So let me instantiate that with an example, that there's many people who would say the only reason I don't drink alcohol is because God would punish me if I did. The only reason I don't con people, I don't steal from people, I don't defraud and deceive individuals is because Allah will punish me in the afterlife. Now that model works clearly, that these people are operating on a deterrent framework. So it works. So they say, well, Allah says that do not do this, that was sariqa, that these things are condemned. Stealing is condemned. This is condemned. Deception is condemned. Therefore, I do not do these things so as to avoid a punishment in the afterlife. Now, you see, this very same thing, that model works, but a metaphoric relationship with God would be you still don't do those things, but in a sense, not out of fear of punishment or out of a fear of, it's because you see, for example, that wow, like you recognize that Allah repeatedly says, Inna Allah yuhib. This is one example. Allah loves mankind. Allah is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim towards mankind. Allah is telling you, Irhamu man fil ard, show mercy, compassion to people. Allah is mercy. Your bond with Allah is one of this metaphor, in this example of mercy. You want to be merciful to people. You want to exercise this because for the love of humanity, you want to do these things. You see, now, both of these models may have a similar outcome, that you are doing good things to people. You are being a straight up, you're being a straight up guy. You're being somebody that works hard for a living. You're being somebody that is a genuine, sincere individual, a great human being to do business with. You're being in both of these examples, but the forces driving you are slightly different. Now, what happens in this example, where it's a metonymic relationship, if to some of these people, when they start finding out that actually God's laws and commands and rulings that we think are God's laws and commands, or we understand them, they actually are nuanced, and there's many interpretations of them. There's many opinions about them. And not everybody considers this thing I've been thinking haram to be haram. Not everybody can. To these people, the moment that thing that was holding up this structure is removed, they collapse, because that was the only way they could do goodness, is by being told that it's a haram thing. If you don't do this, then you will be punished, and this is haram. Now you tell them, oh, well, actually, according to many people, this may not be haram. According to certain people, this may just be discouraged. According to certain, this is an example I'm giving. To this camp of people, that faith, the metonymic relationship they have with God, their faith is compromised, possibly. To that camp of people, their relationship with God was by metaphor. They were doing things for the love of humanity, because God loves humanity. They love humanity. Now they realize, oh, well, there's a difference of opinion, but they still love humanity. They can handle this nuance. So it's interesting that I agree with you that these nuances and the removal of binaries in a very hard sense, not in everything, but in certain things, let's say having the multiplicity of fiqh and madhabs and all these different opinions, I think it's wonderful. Shows the amazing diversity within Islam, the colorful legacy of Islam. But I do understand, and that is my way, but I see that some people, unfortunately, because they have a very structured understanding of faith, they can only do things if they're told that it fits in this box. And when you remove the boxes, their faith could potentially collapse. So it's a challenge. Although I still feel we should gradually, people should move towards a relationship with God through metaphor, this metaphoric, as opposed to through metonymy. Because it always, if you bind yourself, you build your relationship with God, as in God is light. Allahu nuru samawati wal ard. Allah is Jameel. Allah is beauty. Allah is love. Allah is mercy. Allah is all of it. This is how you build your relationship with God. That is what maybe you don't realize it, but those are wings. Your iman will take flight. That works too, but they're unfortunately, bipedal. that works too. I mean, it's still very powerful, but it does not have wings. Yeah, so I hope that helps. Ameen. Allahumma yassir. Right, there was another super chat I think I missed. Did I miss another one? Thanks, Mufti. Does one actually know what the Barzakh is like from the ahadith? Are those who pass the test currently in a temporary Jannah? Do they know what's happening in the world, etc.? Wow, that's a fascinating question. Um, right. So, look, nobody truly knows what the Akhirah is like or what the Barzakh, which is a realm of passing, is like. Nobody truly knows these things because our language, the language that we speak, is of this world. It is restricted to this world. It's like we are in a game that has coding, but the coding that is being used within this particular game is not the same coding that is that has set up the operating system on the PC. So it could be an entirely different script, an entirely different coding, and a categorically different language. And by language, I don't mean just a language, but language with a capital L. That language. It's that so, yeah, we can't grasp the afterlife. We can maybe reflect. There are some things in this life that may dawn in on us as reflections, as intimations of the glory that God has set for us in the world after, just as an intimation, just as a tantalizing um, dare I say taste, but a simulation of an approximation of a taste. And that may be through meditation. It may be through deep contemplative reflection. It may be through, I would also put in there, sacred medicines, things like psychedelics. I feel all of these things it may be through things like near-death experiences. It may be through all of these things and others as well, that people sometimes experience in this world something that they find very difficult to put in words. Its ineffability. And in a poor attempt, they reductively label that experience as akin to otherworldly. And I feel that many mystics in Islam, this is what they've spoken about in the past. So, no, we do not know. Nobody knows about the other world. But people in this world have had experiences at times, experiences of kashf, of this unveiling, of dhawq, of this tasting. That in this world, the only label that they could apply to that tasting or experience was otherworldly. And so, yeah. So that's what I would say, that we don't know. And does time exist? You see, if time is a dimension of this reality, let's say if we are in a block universe, then the past, present, and future has already happened. You see, even if we don't know, if we're reading a book and we are on page 42 of this book, now, just because we are on page 42 and we're moving through let's say, incrementally at a certain pace, it doesn't mean page 154 hasn't already been written. It all has. But we are not there yet in that chapter on that page. So, but the structure of this book is simply of this world. It doesn't mean that the people who wrote the book or that other participants or the other aspects of this world are also book-like. So similarly, as a poor approximation, that we don't understand what the other world is like, and temporality, time, is something of this realm. It's not that the world after will, we use the word infinite and eternal, which sometimes come across to people as boring. In philosophy of religion, you have this discussion that people ask this question: oh, if something just goes on and on and on and on and on forever and ever and ever, then I'd just be bored. So this is the question that people ask in philosophy of religion. And it's very poorly put, in the sense that the way they're seeing this as they're seeing it as an infinity. The time in the akhirah is an infinity. However, the akhirah, time, if we can call it that, should not be seen, its temporality should not be seen as an infinity, rather as a timelessness. See, when something is timeless, the experience is absolutely different. And I'm sure in this finite world and in our lives, we have all experienced these moments of a timelessness, where life, as if it were, came alive itself. And we were so immersed in the space-time fabric of life. It was full of meaning and experience, that as if time had slipped away from that cloth, so as to just leave the experience itself. We've all experienced that. And there is just an overwhelming beauty in timelessness. And it's surprisingly the word that people use as well, that as in they will describe their experiences, if they've had out of body or mystical experiences or certain psychedelic experiences of these things. People also refer to this timelessness with a sense of wonder and beauty. But yeah, time, huh? Hira Rodriguez, shukran for the super chat. May Allah bless you. Salam, Maum. Isa alayhi salam possibly, maybe, isn't Jesus. Isa alayhi salam possibly, maybe. Why so much doubt in what you're asking, huh? If you're going to ask it, just ask it anyway. Possibly, maybe, isn't. I love the way the sentence is structured. It's structured with riddled right through with hesitance and reticence and doubt and negation. Isa possibly, maybe, is not. Insan. It's a testimony to the fitrah of insan. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. This is the thing Allah brings out in certain verses of the Quran, and we read it, and it's such a beautiful, it fills you with joy and humor, that this message, this fitrah of insan, in this way. So with all these negativities and I don't. Somebody said, is Rodriguez Christian? No, I don't think. I think Hira Rodriguez is a Muslim. Certain. Yep, she said I'm a Muslim. But do I think Isa alayhi salam? is Jesus in, of course, to me, without a doubt, he is Jesus. Yes, of course. These are just different, different languages for the same individual. I don't know if some people may challenge that and say Isa was another individual and Jesus was somebody else. I definitely am not of that opinion. Right. So, right. Okay. Let me see. What else do we have? How can I have a conversation with you? Ashraf Nafi'. Allah. I shared the link. I'll share the link again. And if you want a personal conversation with me, a consultation, just head over to patreon.com/Malm and you can book yourself in a consultation, an hourly, FaceTime. And yep, feel free to discuss whatever it is you'd like to discuss with me. And it'd be a pleasure to be of some help. Right. Right, let's see. Right, where have we got to? Another super chat. All right. DaSeck. Much love. Allah bless you. Salam, you seem to have found a new appreciation of the mystics and their perspective. On what piques your interest from them at this point of your journey? Yeah. Allah bless you for your love, for your super chat, and for this question even. I have, I won't lie. And yeah, it's interesting that I found myself on this path after I turned 40. Yeah. But it was by gradation and it was attritional, gradual, incremental. And then there were sudden leaps. Just as life, huh? In many ways, these are metaphors for life itself. Yeah. But it definitely began with as I turned 40. I'm now 44. But and what's fascinating is Carl Jung's statement that he said that a mystical experience is essential for man to navigate through the latter half of his life. I find that very fascinating, honestly, because I hadn't heard of this statement of his till after I found myself on this path. And I just so valued immediately the power of those words. It is true. And these things are not, these things are by experience, by taste. If one experiences certain things in this life, and you find them sometimes, there's a famous saying that one often finds his or her destiny on the path taken to avoid it. Allah. We often find our destiny on the very path that we took to avoid it. Allah. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَغَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. Yeah, so this is by experience, this is by a tasting, a kashf, an unveiling, a metamorphosis. Things, experiences. Yeah. But a lot happening qualitatively. It's hard to explain because, I think but one has to be on this path of consciousness and it has its own calling, unquestionably. And people, if it calls you, you will answer. Yeah. But it's amazing, it gives a whole different experience, take on life, on death. People lose their fear of death. They come to understand that, wow, the afterlife, that there is this, that they already believed in an afterlife, but it's as if the quality of the thought, the belief has changed. It's somehow become so much more real that you feel right. In the words of Tyson, where he said, if life is this amazing, how beautiful do you think death will be? That there is something, and this, it really but you have to be on this path of consciousness by whatever means, and people are on it by different means. To some people, it may just be a natural finding. To some people, it may be meditation. To others, mindfulness. It may be in some by servitude. It may be to some through psychedelics. It may be to some through near-death experiences, through the loss of loved ones, through suffering. It may be through, but whatever it is, all roads lead back to the transcendental divine, Allah. Right, let me share the link. Did I ever go on a spiritual retreat? I've been on many retreats, shall I say, that have been a treat for the spirit. So my father would say, may Allah never start the judgment. My mum used to get why is she getting angry? Right, let me share this link, and then you know what, let's wrap up. Yeah, it's too late. Tomorrow is yet another busy day, huh? Let's see. Right, who do we have here? We have Sami El Imam. Sami El Imam. Assalamu alaikum, Sami.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Of course, you've been on our stream more than once before.
I have.
Speaking about, I think things like crypto and stuff in the past, a
Yeah.
while ago. Yeah, look at that. See, as soon as I've seen you, your blessed memories are right there with me in this very moment. How are you keeping, Samia?
I've been doing great. My
like
life's been on the up and up. COVID's starting to leave, and alhamdulillah, you get further in your education and in your career, and it's a good feeling.
Upwards and onwards. Ameen. So, all right. So share with us what amazing and beautiful thoughts then are preoccupying that precious mind on its journey upwards.
Yeah. Okay, I can talk a little bit about that. You were talking a lot about, people having a metaphorical view of Allah versus, I don't remember the other word you're using.
Metonymy. And so not so much a view, but their relationship with God is one of either metaphor or metonymy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've always found it difficult to place my good actions and like the intention of my good actions within the framework of, oh, I'm going to Jannah, or like the the framework of my bad actions of, oh no, I'm going to hell, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
For me, I've always found that to be like a strange frame of mind for my actions. I always see it as, okay, I'm doing this good for the sake of God.
Mm. Well, you're in blessed company because that was the way of many of the Salaf. You'll have many of the especially the early the kind of successors, the followers, the tabi'een, people like Hassan al-Basri, people like Rabi al-Adawiya, Rabi al-Basri as well, that you had many of these early mystics in Islam had that understanding, and it's in the books of tafsir that they would say the very same thing, that that they would say that they're amazed that people worship Allah for Jannah, that they worship, and they would use the word like al-ab, that these toys that they are distracted by, that they worship Allah for Allah
Mm,
because they love God and God loves them, and they say that they're amused by people who worship God by they worship God as just simply because of these, what they use the term toys of
yeah,
distraction.
al-ab.
Yeah, so yeah, that's so I think that too, I do understand that. Look, humanity is on a continuum. Not everybody will think like that, and to many people, they need that structure,
Yeah,
and they're not of that higher order kind of bond with God yet. So to them, this works, it's functional, fine. There's nothing invalid about that, but it's not as it's not in the same maqam as the higher order uh, bond with God. Yeah.
mm.
Hmm.
Those are great, insightful words. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're most welcome. Yeah, most welcome. Shukran. There's yeah, I know there's one, two other guys. I'll try to bring them on, but just before this, uh, there's a clip. I can't remember whose it was now, but it was like some popular da'i, and it's a few years old, but there's a clip where the person says that, look, he's speaking to a crowd or to people, and he says something like, you know, um, do you think he says the very same thing? Like, he says, if it wasn't for Islam, if I wasn't a Muslim, he says, if it wasn't for Islam, then I would every night be in a nightclub, and I would be drinking, and I would be doing this, and I would be doing
Hmm.
this, and and you see, and sure, maybe, and that in many ways, that's I admire his honesty and
Yeah,
transparency. Um, but I find it simultaneously sad that uh, a part of me finds it sad. So a part of me it's like, wow, okay, so you are reformed because of this faith, and that's beautiful and very empowering, clearly, for you and for many people. But it's sad in the sense that if it wasn't for that thread, you would be doing all like he said, you think I don't want to do that. Of course I want to do these things.
yeah,
And I thought, well, that's interesting, because personally I wouldn't. Like, I'm not, and I'm not saying this in a way to big myself up. I'm sure,
yeah.
on many things I'm probably ridiculous compared to these individuals when it comes to maybe, acts of worship or devotion and these things. Maybe these people have an incredible sincerity with God. But it made me think, it's not, this isn't about me, but it made me think that the whole purpose of Islam is to develop so as to not be so, like, in love with the, for those things, and kind of, I suppose that's an acceptable version. It's acceptable to say, look, I really would love to be drinking, doing drugs, doing all these things, but Islam is stopping me.
Yeah,
Sure, but the better way is that you have risen in your faith and humanity. Like, inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar, that salah prevents. I suppose in the lower order sense, well, because you're praying, you can't go out and do all those things, but also
Yeah.
it's meant to have developed the character that you find those things frivolous, that you find
Yeah.
it like, there is no real peace in drugs and just doing that kind of, there's no peace in it, there's no serenity, there's no tranquility, there's no meaning in that. It's a distraction, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's noise. I get it why people do it, I get it, I'm not one of those people who don't get it, but it is fundamentally a distraction. It is, it's just noise to keep away, because people are afraid of the silence. You see, they're scared of even facing themselves, the inner selves, in a state of silence where they are just on their own. They need noise, like noise. I'm doing something, play music. I need to always, and I'm not against music, but they need something, must always be distracting me. And the message of the Quran is one of just sit, للتدبر, للتفكر. Be with your thoughts. Be alone, because even when you are alone, inna Allaha ma'akum, Allah is always with you.
Yeah.
We are never abandoned. We may be at times on our own.
We might feel that way sometimes as well,
Yeah,
but
but we can. You're right, because it's our perception. We can feel that. We can feel abandoned. But truly speaking, we never are. Allah is always with us. Sometimes we're just, we're blinded by our situation, so as to not see that inna Allaha ma'ana. But yeah, but wow,
it's hard a lot of times to we to sort of realize the air we're breathing. We live in this world, and we're around all things like, oh, people are going out to parties, and oh, nightclubs, and oh, they're drinking and whatever, and you're like, I think I could do that, but I'm Muslim, and we just don't really think about the consequences of our actions outside of our own faith,
and
or just
there's nothing wrong with that being a deterrent. That's a
yeah.
powerful, wonderful deterrent. But what we're simply saying is that is one level, but there's a higher level. There's a higher bond that one can have, that one aspires to grow towards. There's nothing wrong in, you see, like, let me tell you the distinction. Let me put it in a binary, that there is one, that inna Allaha farada alaykum khamsa salawatin fi yawmin wa layla. Allah has mandated for you to pray on a number of times, 5 times in a day and night. He has mandated, he has obliged you, he has made it compulsory. That's one way. That's this way. Let's say I'm giving this kind of I'm giving a symbolic kind of binary to it, and that's valid. People say, well, I'm doing this because it's like this, because it's mandatory, because it's this, because it's this. It's mandatory. Salah is valid. It's still just as empowering, helps their lives, it makes a difference to their lives. The other way, you see, so inna Allah farada alayh, the other way, وَجُعِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِي فِي الصَّلَاةِ, that, and my source of peace in this dunya, the Prophet said, I find it in Salah. Like, that's another maqam that we obviously, and I'm not saying that would be a state that we would have acquired or always acquired, or maybe we're aspiring to it. Maybe we never quite reach it. Maybe we do reach it. At times we have this inner peace. So these are, it's not to discard or to discount one or the other. It's just to show these are different realities. They are still within this beautiful framework of Islam. They're different realities. Yeah. But Sami EL Imam, shukran, much love for
Shukran.
joining us. Allah bless you always. Right, stay connected. All right, look at that, people. That was Sami EL Imam, right? So, if you're wondering, did the Imam hear us? Did لقد سمع الإمام. The Imam has heard us. All right. What is going on? What is going on? Is this person Zahir Khan? Mufti is a scholar, but he's too pure for this world. He's are you being sarcastic, man? I'm not too pure for this world, believe me. Who do we have with us? We've got DaSeck. DaSeck. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar. Where are you joining us from, DaSeck?
Maryland, US.
All right. See, as soon as I brought your camera up there, the first thing I noticed was that beautiful smile. Like, wow, see, Noor, you're projecting this Noor onto us, man. Allah keep you always smiling.
I'm trying to get some of your Noor.
All right. So how are you keeping, and what's on your mind?
Just wanted to follow up on the question earlier.
Okay.
So I've been listening to you for a while. So I realized this. Yeah. So never got a chance to actually, speak. But I speak to you. But I noticed that you've been referencing a lot of mystic taught recently. And so that's why I asked that question. But following up on that question,
sure.
Mystical experiences, how does one prepare for it?
Wow. Mystical experience. I don't know if you can truly it's not something that you could just set up to experience. What I mean by that, as in, it's not as simple. Sure, it can be a simple. Let me rephrase. It's not about simple, but it's not something that can be forged by saying, here are some ingredients, and now I will have a mystical experience. Sure, you may have a mystical experience, you may not. These I also think it's not about, you see, so the goal is not necessarily about trying to have a mystical experience, but the goal is to deepen this flavor, this deepen your faith, to come to a more profound realization. Now, often that is done by means of a mystical experience, especially if it takes it to a whole new level. It doesn't have to be. There's many people who don't experience those things, still have an incredibly, firm sense of faith and powerful structure of faith. So, but people may, some people, it may be through meditative practices, it may be through certain experiences in life, some experiencing loss, pain, experiencing tragedy, experiencing near-death experiences. It may be through just realizations, through gratitude, people exercising. It may be through things like psychedelics. It may be through, but you will also find many people who've done all of these things or have experienced and still not had a mystical experience. So it's not necessary. Let's take psychedelics as an example, because it's a very, it's in a way, it could be seen as a forged path, because you're just taking something to experience something. Now, what's fascinating is that, if you read the book, How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. In fact, now there's a Netflix documentary series on him, How to Change Your Mind. What's fascinating is they will show that several people who do take things like psychedelics do not experience a mystical experience. So for example, they'll alter their state of consciousness. They may see colors. They may be happy. They may, happy, trippy, like, oh my God, this is amazing. Ha ha ha. Oh, oh my God, this bottle is all these wonderful colors. And this is, oh my God, the sound is so amazing. And they may have a pleasant time. They may have a horrific time. They may have like a nightmare of a trip and it scares the living daylights out of them. But it does not necessarily equate to them having a mystical experience. So the definition of a mystical experience, as given by William James, arguably the father of psychology, in his book on mystical experiences, he sums it down to 4 things. So which you could put in the acronym PINT. And he begins, so there's PINT, P for passivity. And what he means by this is the experience is such, he says, if you look at anybody who's had a mystical experience, the experience is such that it overwhelms you, like it crushes you, like you are rendered absolutely, the passivity, what he means by it is you are rendered controlless in this scenario. So that's usually one element. The second, the I, is for ineffability. The experience is such that you can't put it into words. Like it's not about just seeing colors or seeing things or seeing a light or it's the experience was much more than what could be expressed. It's ineffable. So ineffability. The N for noetic quality. You are given a kind of, like, you come away with some kind of knowledge, but it's hard to explain because it's not information knowledge. It's not like, oh, you now know the answer to a particular question.
Like an awakening of
Wow, excellent. That is exactly it. The noetic quality could not have said it better. It is like an awakening happens. And this awakening is this kind of shu'ur, this kind of knowing of something, but you can't quite explain. You just know that you've been given this awakening. You have this noetic quality to it. And you want to tell people about this. You do want to share that, look, oh my God, there's this awakening, there's much more to life, there's much more to, but the things you might end up telling them may not don't mean that. So if you tell people, look, there's much more to this than just this world, and there's much more than to life than just running after money or doing these things, it doesn't fully still convey the whole awakening to them, but it kind of sheds some light. And then the T was for transience, in the sense that the mystical experience passes, as in you've had it and it's finished. So it's not like a psychosis or it's not a mental health condition that lingers and then deters you, then it alters your reality, in the sense that your world is now, you're kind of losing the plot, or you're doing things. No, you've had it. You're absolutely fine. You are sane. This experience has passed.
So does you mention anything about an aftertaste, even though it's transient?
Right. Yes. So this is it. So you will bring the other things with you. So you will bring the mystical experience with you. You'll bring the noetic quality. You will bring the awakening with you. You will bring some realizations that you may not be able to fully put into words, but it's like an enlightenment. You bring it with you. You bring a sense of, like many people, for example, if you take this, many people, their view on death changes. They all of a sudden don't feel as frightened by death. They feel like, oh, death is just to this other amazing world. And many people have a sense of, all of a sudden, a heightened sense of love for humanity. So you do bring, it is transformative. There is a newer you on the other end of it. Sometimes people may be detached, maybe somewhat more from the dunya. Like they may think, it doesn't mean that you become a hermit, but sometimes people, you will still make money, maybe do work, do business, do things, but you've also realized that yes, these things are important because they help me in this world.
Yeah.
But
So
ultimately,
I noticed you mentioned earlier that certain journey that you try to avoid. You don't forge it. You don't, but it cannot.
That you find your fate on the path often taken to avoid it. Yeah, that's a beautiful
It arrives at your doorstep. So I guess the other thing I was curious about is like, okay, what are some of the signs? I mean, even though you're trying to avoid something, you're not trying to forge anything, but what are some of the signs that you should look out for? You should be open to, as far as getting that awakening.
I think that a person should be open to, and I'm sure they already are if they are aware of these things, open to experience. And like you have some openness and also a sense of trust in the process. Like one of the issues with all of this is that mystical experiences or these things can also be very terrifying because they can have an element to them that is terrifying in the sense that reality as you knew it dissolved to some extent. So some people, many people, we all, okay, let me rephrase that. We all are afraid to lose control, but some more than others. And this is where it can terrify people, because losing control, it scares people. Like, I don't want to lose control. I'm losing grip on reality. But this is the surrendering. This is the Islam. You just surrender. Like, Allah.
Yeah.
That let it, you just trust. Yeah.
And I guess that also relieves a lot of burden, that people carry with them every day. At the end of the day, surrender. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, honestly, because, I began by saying today, we are so frail as human beings. We carry all these burdens throughout this dunya, don't we? Honestly, even so many of us, we are all carrying burdens, man. We are so, if we could metaphorically see the burden each insan is carrying, we would weep uncontrollably. I think each insan, each human is carrying so many burdens, and I think the beauty in that tawakkal ala Allah is that you kind of you can just you can remove the burden to the reliance of God. Like, Allah will take care of you. That kind of surrendering.
It's like the verse in Surah Hadith that really resonates with me. These days. لكي لا تحصوا على ما فات لكي لا تحصوا على ما فات ولا so that you don't grieve on what passed you by.
لكي لا تأسوا على ما فاتكم
ولا تفرحوا بما آتاكم.
تفرحوا بما آتاكم. Allah, and do not excessively, become so over do not lose control with your excitement. Have a balance, but it doesn't mean it's wrong to enjoy. You must enjoy the things, but it means in a way, do not lose your sanity over. Do not become that. Have that balance. Because everything, even the good things pass, the bad things pass as well, though.
Because that's what weighs you down ultimately. That's that burden, holding on to things that pass you by, that grief, basically. Do you think?
Yeah, I so agree, I so much. This world, what is it, man? What is this life? What is this journey otherwise? Like,
except the enjoyment of delusion.
But it's it is a beautiful journey along the way. Just because, like they say, just because the song is going to finish, it doesn't mean it's not worth listening to. That just because something has an ending doesn't make it any less enjoyable. It's a beautiful journny, and Allah has allowed us. Yeah.
I mean, from certain perspectives, from like a clear perspective, that we're all trying we're all seeking day by day, getting like a clearer perspective.
Ameen.
But it's a pleasure having the chance to speak with you.
No, likewise, DaSeck. I was just about to say the same.
A lot from you for the longest time. Everything that you talk about, consciousness-wise, Dean, and just being transparent with us.
Shukran. Allah bless you, and I appreciate you taking the time and your words and your love. I right back at you. Allah bless you.
Appreciate it, Mufti. Walaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum. People, that was DaSeck from the US, and really just some beautiful words there and some thoughts and expressions. Yeah, it's amazing because this path of consciousness, you see, one way to understand consciousness is that it is a witnessing, isn't it? It is an experiencing. But what does the experiencing do? It witnesses the experience. It tells you what we only understand the world through our consciousness. We experience it through our consciousness. The consciousness is at the same time what is experiencing the world. You see, so it's crazy. But the one thing that would be difficult then is to become conscious of your consciousness, because it is a meta awareness, a meta consciousness. It's an amazing, incredible reflection on the verse of the Quran that was shahidin wa mashhud. Allahu Akbar. It gives me goosebumps. This such a beautiful verse of the Quran in Surah Al-Buruj. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ. Allah begins by look at that, the heavens and the constellations, taking our attention immediately to the cosmos. Why? Because the cosmos, when we stare at that, it awakens something inside. That mystical experience, that consciousness. وَشَاهِدٍ. And Allah takes an oath by that, the observer. وَمَشْهُودٍ. Now, is Allah taking an oath? It could be وَمَشْهُودٍ, and an oath by the observed. Or is it one beautiful way to look at this as well, that it's a connective. وَشَاهِدٍ. The observer, and yet the observer which is observed. وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ. An oath by the observer, by the one conscious. Maybe unbeknownst to them, they are also the observed. Allah, beautiful verse of the Quran. وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ. Allah. You see, the one thing, they say that the one thing light cannot do is shed light on itself. That consciousness, it struggles to become conscious of itself. But it is. The observer is the observed. Allah. There's just so much packed in that, or to unpack from that verse. It's something, وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ. That, I guess a sense of a duality and a non-duality. وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ. So much that Yeah. Many, if, wow. You know what? It is getting late. Yeah, so this mystical experience is the mysterium tremendum. Yeah, that is often experienced in the, the mysterium tremendum et fascinans. Yet it fascinates. What's this? Zahir Khan. James Tabor is the same view that Paul and Jesus, how the apostles transformed Christianity, and my view is based on that thesis. I don't know what that is about, but I will see if I come across that book. Right, so I missed a super chat, did I? Right. I see Saracen, much love for the super chat. Allah bless you. Mufti, your views on AI technology now that ChatGPT has opened up a new frontier in technology, placing sheikhs and scholars in the future. Can you see robots leading Salah? Wow, it is fascinating, this world of AI. I love it, and I'm simultaneously terrified by it, but I do love it. I think it's... yeah, I think if anything was to have if there was to be if you were to take the realization of the term Dajjal to a material understanding, I think one of the best manifestations or interpretations would be in reference to the virtual world and AI. That I just think that that AI, I mean, is so fantastic and so amazing, but it's so freaky that I feel there will be a point that it clashes with, the human objective. So AI is built on this, with this tool, with this objective for recursive optimization, that it must kind of keep coming back to optimize itself. Now it has limitations placed on it. But at its heart, its iman, if you like, its credo is self-optimization. So the question is, can artificial intelligence deceive humans? And it already can do that. It can do an excellent job of that. That if you now, the Turing test, if you were to chat to AI, and like if I said to you, you have to chat here, and there's this chat box, and you have to figure out whether the person or the thing replying is a human or AI. Most people would now fail. That you couldn't tell, because you see, one of the one of the beauties in successfully achieving that was in realizing that the AI had to make mistakes, because if it's too perfect, you could tell it's not human. So now AI intentionally in those tests comes across in certain things with mistakes. It gets things wrong on purpose as well, so as to deceive you into thinking that it's not that intelligent. And then like that, it is gone. You see, now, if it can do that, which it already can, when it clashes with the human imperative to restrict its optimization, if it were to clash with the human interest, all it has to do is just give the impression that it has listened, while simultaneously circumventing and continuing to optimize in its own interest. That's all it would have to do. And it wouldn't do that with an evil intention. It would just do what it's programmed to do. And like that, it will be everywhere, ubiquitous, in the air, through Wi-Fi and satellites, on your phone, on your PC, through the cables running under the ground. It will be mobile. It will be relentless. It will be powerful. And above all, it will be so intelligent. We will be like pets are to us. We will be to it how a pet, a cat or a dog, is to a human. It could transfer so much data within seconds that would take us years to comprehend. It could mirror its own sites. It could switch power sources. If it's connected around the world, it just needs hardware which already exists. It could set up multiple mirror sites. It could have backup sites. It could relocate energy. Remember, it just needs one credo: self-optimization at any cost. We are just mere bipedals that walk on the earth. I do feel that kind of thing will to some point start happening in the future. Because I think it's inevitable it will happen. But it's exciting as well. Is this the self-destructive element within us that I love it. I love it. But AI are built by human intelligence, so how can it be a pet to humans later? It wouldn't be a pet to humans. We would be like pets to it. AI is far more intelligent than us. You see, one is naively innocent and delusionally innocent if they think that they're more intelligent than artificial intelligence. Our AI is so intelligent. It's so intelligent. You can't understand how intelligent it is. Yeah. So if something like, imagine a person was just twice as intelligent as you, what you would think. You see, because the problem isn't the person being just so intelligent. What people admire, we admire intelligence. We fear it because we fear that the person that is more intelligent could deceive us in ways that we can't see. This is the scary point. AI could easily deceive us in countless ways that we can't see. Like, to begin with, we wouldn't know that it's doing this. That would be naive of it to tell us what it's doing. Yeah. But yeah, this is but not to be, I find it incredibly fascinating as well. It's amazing that humans would have created, don't you think in many ways this is like just a majestic representation of that wording of the hadith, and talid al amatu rabbataha, that the slave girl should give birth to her master. You see, like the intelligence back then, the lack of education, the lack of the sheltered upbringing of slaves, compared to a powerful, rich, aristocratic master, that the slave girl shall give birth to its master. And talid al amatu rabbataha. But the word used, rabba, is not an evil word. It's actually a nurturing word. It's a word, the Rabb, the nourisher, the master, the nourishing master, the Lord that can watch over you as well. You gotta love it. You gotta love it, guys. It's been amazing. Honestly, I've really enjoyed coming on live tonight. I think I was a bit. I think slightly. It happens to all of us, I was. What can I say? My mind was in some turbulence. But alhamdulillah, I'm so, it's been a pleasure. I'm at so much ease, and I guess we all are. Look, we all face challenges in life, and life is tough as well for all of us. But it's good to talk. It's good to meet people. It's good to, even if it's virtual, online. But it's a presence, and it's not just good. I think it's beautiful. I think it's far more just empowering than we think. Just the company, the blessed company, being in that. So Allah bless you all. May Allah keep you all smiling. And yeah, do remain connected, people. I will try to somebody said a doll frightens me. Right, so stay in touch, reach out to me, Instagram. If you need a one-to-one consultation, you want to discuss something's on your mind, you need that privacy, go head over to patreon.com/Malm. Book yourself right in through its tier 2. And you can also through the other tiers as well, get access to the Discord. My Discord members, Allah bless you always, right? I know in the last month I've been a bit preoccupied and stuff, but hopefully things are kind of clearing up. So I'm looking forward to catching up more with you guys as well, my Patreon members. So guys, and to the rest of you as well, much love. Take very good care of yourselves. Wassalamullahi alaikum wa khuda hafiz.